There are people in this world who have very little. And then there are people who have almost nothing, yet somehow find a way to give. Martha was that kind of person. And on one ordinary cold evening, she made a decision so simple, so quiet, that nobody around her even noticed. But 20 years later, the whole world would feel it. The evening market was winding down. Martha was heading home. She had worked all day washing other people's clothes until her hands were raw and her back ached. In her hands, she carried one small loaf of bread. It was all she had for the night. She was not thinking about anything extraordinary. She was just a tired woman walking home. And then she saw them. 5 boys sitting quietly behind an old market stall. They were not making noise. They were not causing trouble. They were just there. And when Martha walked past, their eyes followed the bread in her hands. Not with greed. Not with mischief. Just with a kind of quiet hunger that only a person with a good heart can recognize. Martha slowed down. She stopped. She stood there for a moment, looking at the bread, then looking at them. And something inside her chest made a decision before her mind even caught up. Slowly, she broke the bread. Piece by piece. She placed a piece in each small waiting hand. She kept nothing for herself. Not a single crumb. That night, Martha went home with an empty stomach. But if you had looked at her face, you would have thought she had just received the greatest gift in the world. The very next morning, trouble arrived. A shop owner stormed into the market pointing and shouting, "My money is missing! It was those boys. I know it was them." A crowd gathered the way crowds always do when there is anger in the air. Ready to believe the worst. People picked up sticks. The boys pressed against the wall, unable to speak, unable to run. And then one small, thin, tired woman walked straight into the middle of it all. Martha stood between the crowd and the boys. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of someone who had decided she was not moving. These children did not steal. You will not touch them without proof. The crowd pushed back with words. Sharp, ugly words. But Martha did not flinch. She did not step aside. She stood there like a woman who understood that sometimes love looks like a wall. Then, from across the market, a shout. The real thief had been found. Pockets full. Guilt written all over his face. The crowd went quiet. Most of them walked away without a word. Not one apology. But the boys. They looked at Martha with something brand new in their eyes. Something they had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Their names were Philip, George, Paul, Jerry, and Abel. That evening, Martha sat with the 5 boys and spoke to them in a soft voice. "My room is very small," she said honestly. "But it is warm. And no child should sleep in the cold when I have a roof over my head." She took them home. One small room, one old bed. But from that night forward it was home. There is a saying that a good tree does not grow overnight. It is watered slowly, day by day, season by season. Martha was not just a woman who gave 5 boys a roof over their heads. She was the water, and she never stopped pouring. Life in that small room was not easy. Let nobody tell you any different. Some mornings, there was very little to eat. Some evenings, Martha came home so tired she could barely lift her arms. But she always came home. That was the thing about Martha. She always came home. She washed clothes for other families before sunrise. She cleaned houses in the afternoon. She sold vegetables on weekends. She carried the weight of 6 lives on 2 small shoulders, and she never once complained in front of the boys. Because she understood something deeply. Children do not just eat food. They eat what they see. And she refused to let them grow up eating bitterness, defeat, or self-pity. She was strict. Make no mistake about that. Martha did not raise 5 boys with softness alone. She raised them with structure, with standards. with a firm, loving voice that said the same things so many times the boys could finish her sentences in their sleep. Go to school. Be honest, always. Respect every person you meet. Work hard even when nobody is watching. And no matter how cruel this world is to you, you must never become cruel back. Philip, the oldest, took her words and held them like precious stones. George argued sometimes, the way clever children do, but he always came around. Paul was quiet and serious, the one who sat with his books long after everyone else was asleep. Jerry was full of energy and ideas, always dreaming out loud about things that seemed impossible. Abel, the youngest, watched everything and everyone with wide, thoughtful eyes. 5 completely different boys. But Martha loved each one in exactly the way they needed to be loved. And that is a rare and beautiful skill. Years passed the way years do. Quietly at first, then all at once. The boys grew taller than Martha. Their voices deepened. Their shoulders broadened. And one by one, the small room that had once held all of them became too small for the size of their dreams. Philip left first. He had won a scholarship and was going to study engineering. The morning he left, Martha packed his bag herself. She pressed some money into his hand, money she had saved for months, and she held his face in both her palms. "Make me proud," she whispered. "But more than that, make yourself proud." Philip cried that morning. A grown young man with tears running down his face at the door of a tiny one-room house. And he was not ashamed of a single tear. George left for law school the following year. Paul received a full scholarship to study medicine. Jerry started a small business that everyone around him said would fail. It did not fail. Abel, the youngest and the quietest, taught himself technology on a borrowed laptop and built something from nothing until the right people noticed. They all promised Martha the same thing before they left. "We will come back for you, Mama. We will never forget what you did. Just wait for us." Martha smiled at each of them. She waved them off at the door. And then she went back inside her small room and sat in the quiet. But life has a way of getting loud again when you least expect it. The boys were gone, and the world kept moving. Martha kept working, kept praying, kept waiting. Months passed. Then the months became years. Calls became less frequent. Messages became shorter. Not because the boys stopped caring, but because life is a current, and when you are young and hungry and building something from nothing, the current carries you fast and far. Martha understood this. She never complained. She never called with guilt in her voice. She just kept loving them from a distance, the way good mothers do. Quietly, consistently, without condition. Time is not always kind to the people who deserve kindness the most. And Martha was about to learn that truth in the most painful way possible. The years had been long. Martha's hair had turned completely white. Her back, which had once carried the weight of 6 lives without complaining, was now bent and weak. The small house that had once been the warmest place in the world became too difficult for her to manage alone. A neighbor arranged for her to go to a care home. Martha packed her one small bag. She took her photograph of the boys. And she left quietly, the way she had always done everything. But the care home was not what anyone had promised. The staff were busy and distracted. The days were long and empty. No family came to visit. No familiar voices filled the hallways. Martha sat by the window every single day, watching the road outside, holding her photograph, praying softly for her 5 boys wherever they were in the world. She never stopped loving them. Not for one single day. Then one ordinary morning, a staff member walked up to Martha with an uncomfortable look on her face. "We are sorry," the woman said, not quite meeting Martha's eyes. "There is no more space here for you." Martha looked at her slowly. "No space," she repeated. "We are very sorry. You will need to leave today." Today. Not tomorrow. Today. And so Martha found herself outside, sitting in a wheelchair on the pavement. her one small bag on her lap, her photograph clutched in her trembling hands. People walked past her on both sides. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if she was all right. Martha sat there, completely alone, feeling the full weight of a word she had never allowed herself to believe before. Forgotten. A tear rolled slowly down her face. Then another. She looked down at her lap and whispered to herself in a voice so small that only God could hear it. Maybe the world has finished with me. And then, something happened. A deep, steady sound of cars moving slowly down the street. 5 cars appeared around the corner, moving in a careful, deliberate line. One by one, they came to a stop directly in front of her. People on the pavement began to slow down and stare. Nobody understood what was happening. Not yet. The car doors opened, and 5 tall, well-dressed men stepped out into the light. Men who had clearly built something real with their lives. They walked slowly toward the old woman in the wheelchair. And then, right there on the open pavement, in front of every single person watching, all 5 men lowered themselves to their knees. At her feet, together. The street went completely silent. "Mama," they said. One voice. 5 hearts. Martha's whole body went still. Her breath caught somewhere in her chest. Her hands began to shake so violently that the photograph nearly fell from her fingers. She looked at the first face, then the second, then the third, fourth, fifth. Her boys had come back. Philip spoke first, his voice breaking at the edges. "We have been looking for you everywhere, Mama. Everywhere." George leaned forward and took both her shaking hands gently in his. "You never abandoned us," he said, his eyes full. "So we will never abandon you." Paul, the quiet one, the doctor, pressed his lips together before he could speak. "You made us who we are," he finally said softly. "Every single thing we have built, you built first." Jerry, bold and warm as always, smiled through the tears streaming freely down his face. "Did we not tell you we were coming back?" And Abel, her youngest, her thoughtful one, said the 4 words that finished her completely. "We came back, Mama." Martha opened her mouth, but no words came. Only tears. Not quiet tears. Not polite tears. Deep, shaking, from the bottom of the soul tears. The kind that carry 20 years of waiting inside them. She had whispered just minutes ago that the world had finished with her. But the world had not finished with her. It was only just beginning. They lifted her carefully into one of the cars. Gently. The way you carry something irreplaceable. They drove her straight to the best hospital in the city. The best doctors examined her. The best nurses attended to her. But the most important thing in that hospital had nothing to do with medicine. Her 5 sons never left her side. Not once. They fed her with their own hands. They held her hands through every procedure. They sat on the edges of her bed and made her laugh until the nurses had to remind them to keep the noise down. They prayed over her every single morning. And slowly, steadily, beautifully, Martha grew stronger. The day she was discharged, the boys told her they had one final surprise. They drove her through a peaceful, quiet neighborhood she had never seen before. They surprised her with a brand new modest house and a small car with a private driver. They hired all the servants she needed so she would never have to work again, and they placed her on a steady monthly salary. Every month. Without fail. For as long as she lived. Martha sat down in the middle of that warm, beautiful room and wept so deeply that everyone in the house wept alongside her. She had given a piece of bread 20 years ago, and it had come back to her as a home, a family, a life fully restored, and 5 sons kneeling at her feet. And then something extraordinary began to happen. As if the universe itself had been watching and waiting. Doors that had been closed for years suddenly flew open for all 5 men. Business deals came together effortlessly. Strategic connections appeared from the most unexpected places. Financial abundance began to flow in ways that made even them stop and marvel. What had taken them 10 full years to build before was now being accomplished in a single year. And within that same remarkable year, all 5 men got married. 5 weddings. 5 celebrations. 5 times that Martha sat in the front row, dressed in her finest, glowing like the mother she had always been. She danced at every reception. She prayed over every couple. She held every new daughter-in-law's face in her palms, the same way she had once held the boys' faces at the door of that tiny one-room house, with pure, unconditional love. But the greatest thing her sons ever built was not a house. It was not a business empire. It was not personal wealth. Together, the 5 of them established a foundation, a home for abandoned and homeless children. And they named it after Martha. A place where no child would sleep on the street. A place where no child would feel invisible. A place where every lost, overlooked, unwanted child could walk through the door and immediately feel one thing: worth. Just like 5 hungry boys felt for the first time on a cold evening, when a tired woman with one small loaf of bread stopped walking, looked at them, and chose them. Because kindness never disappears. It does not die when it goes unseen. It does not shrink when it goes unthanked. It simply waits. It grows quietly in the lives it touched. And one day, when the time is exactly right, it comes back. Bigger than you planted it. Stronger than you imagined it. More beautiful than you ever dared to hope. Martha gave bread. She received a home, a family, and a legacy that will outlive them all. Never underestimate what your small act of kindness is doing in someone else's life. Never stop giving just because nobody is watching. The right people are always watching, and they always come back. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel right now and join a family of people who still believe in the power of a good heart. Thank you very much for watching.